In this episode, I want to break down the first thing I look at when I'm brought into a business with the goal of helping them scale their paid media effort. And I want to share this with you because if you're in a season where you are running ads and you want to get better results, you feel like you could actually improve your performance, but you're not too sure where to start. I want you to use this kind of as a guide or a roadmap that's going to help you when actually uncovering what could be the bottleneck that could be hindering your performance. So the first thing that I look at when I am auditing a business, and this actually happened a couple of weeks ago. One of a multiple 70-year executive coach brought me into the business. He was spending about $30,000 on ads across Meta and Google. And he was just in a place where he was getting a 1.5, a 2x ROI. And some month he was getting 2x, other month he was getting 1.5, 1x. And he was like, is this good enough? Should I just be happy with the 2x? I've been told by agency owners, I've been told by my team that that's just average. Those are average numbers, and we should just be happy with that. And I had to remind him that, if you look at average numbers, your business is always going to be average because the average business loses money, is stressed out. Have really thin profit margin. They are unsure where the next client is going to come from. And the average business doesn't last more than 5, 10 years. So if you only look at the average and say, okay, this is the average, we should just be happy with this. It's literally you putting a ceiling on your growth and stopping you from getting better results. So after doing the audit, I really uncovered there were some lower hanging fruit that he could leverage immediately and that we implemented that allowed him to move from 1.5 that month when we came into the business to get to 2.5. And then after a couple of weeks, we were at 3x ROI, and we are still scaling and working with him. So the purpose of this episode is really allowing you to get a sneak peek of behind the scenes of how it looks like when I get into a business and when I audit the account. Of course, I can share a 3-hour that I did for this company in a 15-minute podcast, but I really want to equip you with the strategies and the frame that I use whenever I'm doing this work. So you can do it by yourself, or you can have me come in and help you and support you in this area. Now, the very first common mistake diagnosis when it comes to when a business owner is struggling with performance, I'm just going to focus on meta ads for the sake of this episode because the same principle can apply across platform. So whenever a business owner or an advertiser is experiencing a drop in performance, they tend to focus on the symptom rather than the root cause. And the symptom is typically going to look like the result that you see on the front end. So this might be your cost of acquisition that has escalating cost per 1,000 impression, inconsistent result. You have a higher cost per lead or a higher cost per call schedule, but you have a low show rate. You have a low show rate, and those people showing up are not even qualified. So you're like, okay, we are getting, shitty lead from marketing, and your scaling is just stalled. You feel like you've hit a bottleneck, and it doesn't matter how much money you put into your ads, you get lower or even the same return on investment because your ads are not performing. And what I see happen so often when a business owner experiences, they will think, okay, let me change the agency owner that I'm working with. Let me change the team. Or they just think, okay, like this client was thinking we can do, and let's just be happy with that. And another misconception is thinking, okay, so what I need to do is I need to spend more. And if I spend more, maybe something is going to happen. And my ads manager, I need to spend all ads and see what's going on in the ads manager. And those are 3 things, or I don't know, 4 things that I see a lot of business owners doing that's stopping them from actually getting results. So the primary thing which I look at when I come in is, first of all, how the congruency between the messaging in the creatives and what's happening in the rest of the funnel. Because the ads can be doing an excellent job at driving traffic to your page, but there's a disconnect between what they read and what the experience looks like once they leave the ads, so while scrolling landing page, your VSL page. So looking at the congruency, because the messaging is typically the most fundamental thing that can literally make or break your performance. in the ads or video ads, your image ads, your ad copy, your headline, and making sure that there's a congruency with the offer as well that they see on the ads and what happens on the landing page. You'll be surprised how often business owner or advertiser are going to use different messaging in the ads, the same offer. But if in the ads I read a message around a 5-day challenge, maybe that's the offer that you're pushing on the ads, and I get on the page and nothing tells me anything about a challenge or a 5-day challenge, or it's just, maybe the headline is just like a challenge, how to get fit, but it doesn't specify 5 days. That's just an example, right? I'm going to get lost. I'm going to be like, is it the right thing for me? Or I might be telling you, okay, you are going to get this free training, and you get on the page, you say it's a page to schedule a call, and you're like, I was expecting to see a free training. Am I prompted to schedule a call? So all of those things make a huge difference. Also understanding that your congruency in the messaging also has to align with your targeting. So if you are, for instance, going to a warm audience, you want to use a different messaging than if you are going to a completely cold audience, because those who are cold, you can't just come at them the way in which you go to your crew, your people, for instance. And adjusting, for instance, for this client specifically, before working with us, he was in a place where he would just have the same messaging running across all of the audience targeting. So they would just like copy and paste the same messaging over and over again. But it was a messaging that was very harsh, very direct response, very like just to get conversions. And typically that type of messaging doesn't perform as well when it's shown to a cold audience, especially when the creative is not really designed to pre-frame them and educate them on why they need whatever you have to sell. So that's incredibly important. And because if you have misaligned or unclear messaging, that is definitely going to affect your ad performance. And messaging again goes beyond just what's on the ads, because you can have a very optimized ad copy that crushes it, but then on the rest of the funnel. And the same also goes for your emails. Once they come into your ecosystem, what happens? The email that they are getting align with what you've sold them on training. Are those emails reinforcing the value and really kind of reinforcing that decision that they've made to actually join your environment? Or are they now in a season where they're like, oh, I made the right decision by subscribing to this thing? Incredibly important. The second thing which I look at is really the data. And that's one thing that if you take anything from this podcast, I invite you to consider this one specific element. If you've been running ads for any length of time, I want you to be able to understand not just when you had your best month, which is what most business owners tend to focus on, but also what drove those best months. Which creative were you running? Which offer were you leading with? Which messaging were you using? Which creative were created in that moment, were pushed in that season? I like to look at the data for the past even 24, 36 months to really understand the journey of the company and what has happened, because you'll be surprised that try something, it works really well, and you are always with this shiny object syndrome where you always want to test new things and tweak this and tweak that, and you end up losing or you end up forgetting what worked really well. And by going back and really looking at the data for the past, as long as you've been running ads and understanding what is this history telling me about what type of messaging really resonated with your audience in the past. Anything, we don't always find that clarity, but even if we don't find clear winners that we can actually get inspired from or just replicate, we also understand what not to do at all, because you also be surprised sometimes you try something and it has never worked, and you keep on trying the same thing over and over again, hoping that something is going to change. It's just simply not gonna happen. You are just wasting your money. You are wasting your resources. So looking at your past data to really understand what's happening and inform your next decision is incredibly important. It's gonna just fill you with so much clarity and so much conviction around, okay, this is what my audience really resonates with, and this is the type of messaging that they don't resonate with. And that's the reason why when I say whenever you are running paid media, it's winning, because even if you're not winning in terms of, here I have cash in the bank, you are winning in the sense of, oh, now I understand what not to do. I understand what type of messaging my audience doesn't react to. So I know that I'm never going to run the type of messaging again, or I'm going to adjust as it please. or I've really found the thing that works, drill that down. Let me squeeze as much juice from this angle because I know this is what's converting. And I really want to emphasize this point because sometimes it's so hard or it can be quite tricky to find an angle that actually works, that you don't want to just, once you found it, think, oh, and let me just scratch that and start again from zero. It might be harder to find another angle that works. So I always invite, and whenever I work with clients, I always invite them to really squeeze and try to squeeze as much juice from that angle before they move on to something. So let's say like an ad angle, a messaging angle that really works well in our ad copy. We won't gonna take that ad copy and turn that into a video ads. We take that video ads, we turn that into maybe an overlay text on a reel with that, the hook. We take that same messaging angle and we turn that into a creative and image ad. Again, we are trying here, or we even can take that messaging and we have it into a headline or the first line on our landing page, because we know that's the dream, that's the desire that our target audience really resonates with, and we want to squeeze as much as possible. And the third thing which I look at is relevance. Is such an important pillar when it comes to launching and scaling ads effectively. And when I think about relevance in advertising, I think about it being broken down into three components. The first one is realizing that your creative must address a specific problem, pain point, or desire for your target market. That's what's going to get them to react. The second piece of this puzzle is really your creative should feel native to the platform, rather than looking like an advertisement or like a billboard display ad. You want your ad to appear organic and really blend in the platform, because that's convert better. What we've been experimenting with over the past couple of months is really we're using AI podcast and send us podcasts where they were interviewed and really take those snippets and turn them into ads. Why? Because it really looks like, it doesn't even look like an ad. Someone is watching the content on YouTube and next thing you know, they see a podcast that, oh, just a conversation with two people. And then there's the offer that comes in. It's really effective. It works. It's just crushing it in these days. And for clients that don't interviewed on big platform, we either create an AI version of the podcast that looks really human, then being interviewed by someone, AI avatar, that works incredibly well. And the third option is if you don't, though some clients don't want to go with the AI road, or they haven't the credential, they are not interviewed on big platform yet, what we do then to get those quick shots, they just go into a studio and they film themselves like speaking to a wall. It looks like they were doing, and we take that snippet and we turn that into creative. Why? Because we want the creative to feel as native as humanly possible. That's really what's going to get your process to pay attention. We live in an era where trust is at all-time low. People's attention span is lower than a goldfish. So you definitely want to be more smarter, more strategic when it comes to positioning your ad so that it's actually consumed. Because no matter how incredible your offer is, if no one listens to it, you're not going to get any conversion. So that's the second pillar when I think about relevance in ads. The third one is really your hook. The first 1 to 3 seconds of your ads, what you say, what's written on the screen, where you are, what you do, is really designed to get them to pay attention and stick. So that's really the part where we obsess about. When we work with clients, we typically have like 5 hooks, that when we send them the video ad script, we have 5 hooks, and then we have the body of the video, because we want to test, okay, which hook is going to get our target audience attention the best, and how do I then link that to the body of the video ads. That's the easiest part. So that's also what I look at. Is there do we have those that congruent in terms of the relevance when it comes to the creatives? And something which is very important when you are auditing your ad account, or when you are bringing someone to audit your ad account, you really want to remember that clarity and simplicity are incredibly powerful. That's really what's going to help your prospect understand how you can help them. You don't want to sound clever, you want to sound clear, because clarity always precedes sales. A prospect who is clear on why they should work with you is always going to buy. They're always going to invest. If there's confusion, if there's just too much information, if you're using big lingo, it's literally going to repel them, and they're going to be like, okay, let me think about this thing, but I'm not sure if this is what I actually need. So making sure that within those 3 seconds, they are called out, the pain point is clearly outlined, and that the message is not buried in the overly complex or lack a clear display of value, because all of those different elements that might sound basic make a huge difference when it comes to the ad performance. And again, visual that are very organic, that are very native, works well. We've seen clients, have better results with just a selfie video or a video in their car while they are driving, rather versus them sitting in a fancy podcast studio or in a fancy office. That's except for that podcast style that I mentioned earlier, we typically see more organic video perform incredibly well. So next thing here is really thinking about, again, that consistency across your funnel. Is that something that is present? Because you want to think about your customer journey. It's the ads, and the ads do their job. And I have here the sales funnel builder, and I have the sales team over there. No, there needs to be congruent. There needs to be like a bridge that a prospect goes through, and they feel like they're speaking the same tone, the same words, the same value, the same offer has to be put in front of them throughout your funnel. So those are the fundamentals that I really, really focus on. That's just like the top three that I can think about, because they make a huge difference. It's not about quick fixes or, get rich quick scheme, or just pushing a magic button and having Facebook ads print you tons of money, even though we've done that in the past for clients. But the only reason why we are able to do that consistently with clients is because we always go back to the fundamental, and we really understand what's required to help them optimize continuously and scale predictably. Era that it's more and more tricky to get consistent results with paid media, and having this kind of roadmap allow us to really make sure that we have the basis covered, and that we can scale with sustainable, that's profitable, and that's just predictable, because ultimately we are aiming to help them grow while keeping their profit and their peace of mind. So that's, in a nutshell, what I look at when I get into a business and I want to help them scale to the next level. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. I would love to. If you got value from this episode, make sure to leave us a review. If you are listening on the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Like the video. It helps tremendously. The content being seen by more people just like you. And if you need someone to come in and help you with your paid media, whether that's on Meta or on YouTube, feel free to reach out. That's what we do. Clients will help, clients in different niches scale profitably and predictably using the power of paid media. So I will catch you on the next episode. Until then, keep on learning, keep on scaling, and never stop growing.